So there are a lot of tech tools out there, and specifically a lot of tech tools specifically for financial advisors. And there's so many that it can be hard to know what's worth your time to learn and what's worth your money, because you want to make sure that these tech tools are giving you better outcomes and aren't just distracting you. So today we're going to be talking about tech that works for advisors, and also some tips for how to integrate that tech into your practice. So this is session 6 of the Building a Better Advisory Business series. It is a part of the build up to Debra Taylor's practice management workshop. It's a virtual practice management workshop that runs from July 19th to the 22nd. If you want to go ahead and get some more information about that, you can go to horsesmouth.com/new normal to get all the details, all the agenda about what she's going to talk about. And I'll just say that again, that it was hugely popular the first time she gave this workshop, and Debbie only improves things and adds more things to it. So I think it's going to be a great experience this time around as well. You would like to get session 7, the last session of this series, onto your calendar. You can go to horsesmouth.com/series to get a calendar appointment for that. And if you missed any of the past sessions of this series, you can go to horsesmouth.com/betterbiz, better B-I-Z biz, to watch those replays and get caught up. So without further ado, actually, the question I want to ask you guys to help start us off here is, what tech tools do you currently use that you just love? You couldn't live without them. Let us know in chat. We'd like to see what you guys use and really like. But without further ado, I'll hand things over to Sean Bailey, Horses Mouth Editor-in-Chief, and Debra Taylor of Taylor Financial Group. Over to you guys.
Good morning.
Morning. Thanks, Doug. Debbie, I was just thinking, there's this question of, what tech tools do you love? I was thinking back like 15 years ago or more, in the early 2000s or something like that. I can't say that you have a better sense of this than I do, but what kind of tech tools is this whole idea of an advisor has a tech stack and there's like all these different tools for all sorts of different things you're doing. But like 15 years ago, was there even the idea of a tech stack? I mean, I think, everybody had Microsoft Office Suite. They might have had a CRM like Redtail, or maybe they were, working with some other sort of thing. Were there other tools even back then? Like, what comes to mind before we get to these modern times with technology tools? I'm just curious, like 15 years ago.
Yeah, actually, it's funny, Sean, because you were reading my mind. When Doug's like, "Oh, what's your favorite tech tool?" and I'm thinking, 5 years ago, we never would have even been having this conversation. I don't think you need to go back 15 years. I think 5 years, because you would have had one or two, but it wouldn't have been like, "Oh, I have this whole tech stack and I use this." It would have been, yeah. I mean, it was like, "Oh, I have some type of like rudimentary financial planning software, and of course we use Excel, right? We're very sophisticated here." And of course we had some type of CRM, but there are a lot of advisors out there not even using a CRM. I mean, they use like Outlook as their CRM, and so which is so scary. And so it's interesting you asked, because then we have some people in the chat mentioning their favorite tech tools. And so I'd love to sort of give that a little bit of play. So we've got Cliff saying he loves Redtail CRM and eMoney, which is great. And then I've got Bruce coming in with Riskalyze, Redtail, Money Guide, and Excel. And so it's interesting because when you look at that, you see a few themes, right? So, broadly, right? Because we do have a tech stack, and we probably have like, I don't know, probably 10 to 15 types of software in our tech stack. I mean, some real critical primary players and some are very tertiary. I would tell you it's like 9 or 10 like primary day in and day out tech tools that we couldn't live without, basically. And so it's interesting because if you look here, even with Cliff and Bruce, and then my own experience, is they both mention a CRM. And so I would tell you that's one of the key things right out of the box is everybody needs a really robust CRM. I don't know how you grow or scale your practice without a great CRM. And then the second thing you see, just sort of try to look at high level themes, are financial planning software, more the broad-based financial planning software, because you see Cliff mentioning eMoney and you see Bruce mentioning Money Guide. And so anyway, I'll just leave that there. It's sort of an answer to your question, maybe not, but just incorporating some of the folks in the audience and giving us something to think about.
Well, so And thanks everybody out there for checking in with this, what your favorite tech tools are right now. But Debbie, what kind of problems do you see that advisors are struggling with when it comes to using technology or software programs, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So I think a big challenge is, a lot of our profession are in their like mid to late 50s, right? Like the average age is like 57 or something. And so I think you see people have been doing this for 20 to 30 years. And 5 years ago, they didn't have to worry about all this technology. And so I think part of it is people are used to doing business a certain way, and being nimble, adapting to the times is a challenge when someone's like, hey, it's worked. So like, why should it's ain't broke, why fix it? So I think that's sort of like one challenge of it. It's just literally the age of our profession, the fact that we survived so long, not being very tech savvy. And it's really just the last 5 years, I would tell you, that technology has been such a critical tool to help us grow our practices, to help service our clients. And then the other thing is the cost involved. And I don't mean just financial, but I mean training the team, your own training. There's a huge startup cost essentially to implementing this technology. It's really a whole philosophical change to your service model. And the question is whether you want to roll up your sleeves and sort of go to that next level. And a lot of people who are super successful riding that 11-year bull market, they're like, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think those are some of the challenges we see.
Right. So, well, for you, over the course of the last 5 years, what has been your biggest pain point or problem in terms of meeting this challenge of new technology?
Yeah. So anybody that knows me knows that I'm not great with technology, which is sort of ironic because we're sitting here talking about technology. And so Doug is probably in the background laughing a little bit because every time we have to hop onto a Zoom call, it's a little bit of a process, right? So full disclosure, I'm not great at technology, right? I mean, I fit into that, in that sense, into that typical advisor. I'm 55 years old. I started in the business 25 years ago, that same model, right? That's basically me. So how I was able to push through it is I ended up, and I know not everybody can do this, but everyone can have their version of this, is I ended up hiring my husband 6 years ago, and his background is in technology. And one of the things I say to people is if you asked me 10, 15, 20 years ago if hiring my husband would be additive to the firm, I would have told you absolutely not, right? But it's really over that last 5 years that having a technology champion on your team is so critical. And so he is a technology champion. And then we've hired interns and a younger staff that just like hops right on this technology and isn't thrown off by it, doesn't care if they have to try 50 different buttons to get something to work. I mean, I try one button, I think the whole thing is going to blow up. I'm going to lose all my work, right? Because we have PTSD from 30 years ago. These guys, they'll just keep trying it 50 times until they get it right. And so I think for me, I hired my husband. Not everyone could go out there and hire a spouse, right? But hire a technology champion. And if you can't do that, then get some younger people on your team that feel very comfortable with the technology, and they will help lead the way because you just assign it to them and be like, you're in charge of this, go run with this and report back in 1 week.
Right. So the promise of technology is greater productivity, more efficiency, saving time. Which technologies have you found, especially when it comes to the issue of delivering service to your clients? What ones do you think are delivering the biggest bang for the buck, or maybe ought to be something that advisors pursue integrating into their own practice management tech platform?
Yeah. And so like I said, I mean, we basically have 10 to 15 pieces of technology, but 9 or 10 that we are using in a critical way. But I would tell you the top two, and it's what we see Cliff and Bruce mentioning, right, is we use Salesforce as our CRM. I couldn't live without a CRM. And I've always had some version of a CRM, even if it was rudimentary and crashing all the time. Because I always saw that was so critical to our service delivery. And then financial planning software. And again, you see eMoney and Money Guide are the two most popular versions of financial planning software. But I see people out there who do not use financial planning software. They try to use Excel to do financial planning. I mean, that was 10 or 20 years ago we did that. We've come so much further than that. So I would tell you those are the two critical out of the box,
Right.
Table stakes.
Yeah, I guess a good CRM and the good financial planning software really ought to be at the core of any practice. But what are some of the newer things that you've added in recent years that have just saved you and your team a lot of time?
Sure. No, happy to talk about that. Okay. So those are the two cores, right? So I would mention Holistiplan. No, I don't work for them and they don't comp me. But because our niche, and I think everybody should focus in this area, is tax planning, retirement distribution planning, right? So much opportunity there. I don't know how you deliver any of those types of services, do a Roth conversion, do a Roth 401k. I don't know how you even have those conversations without running it through some type of analytics. And so we love Holistiplan. Right on the heels of Holistiplan, I would tell you are FP Alpha and Vanilla, which are two newer offerings to the market. And we're really excited about integrating those into our practice. And so Holistiplan will analyze the tax returns and help you do Roth conversion analysis and filling the tax bracket, things like that. FP Alpha has
I just want to interrupt for a second, just because
Sure.
the big revelation with Holistiplan for you, I believe, was the fact that the AI technology allows for the scanning of a client's return, with something that you had previously been doing by hand.
Yes.
It had its own challenges. So can you
Yes.
just talk about that for a second?
Sure. Yeah. So we were always analyzing tax returns. I mean, I'm a CPA by training. This is my value add. And so we were always doing it. But then I'd get the tax return given to me, and I would literally initially go by hand through the tax return and like write notes. And Horse's Mouth had a great checklist, and I'd follow that checklist. I mean, it was just so time consuming, not scalable, whatever. Then tax clarity came out, Covism. And so we started using Covism, which was, of course, an improvement over doing everything by hand. The problem with Covism, tax clarity, is that you had to manually input all of that information from the tax return. And I assigned that to an intern in my office who is now working full time, but there were mistakes. Tax returns are complicated, and what's on line 8A could be a combination of 2 or 3 different things. And you'd have to understand that to know what to be inputting into Covism. And so there were tons of mistakes, and I still had to go through everything literally line by line. I couldn't trust the results on that. Okay, so very clunky software. Then the real breakthrough, which was Holistiplan. And Holistiplan is you just upload the tax return and it spits out a 2 or 3 page report in literally a minute that I call, it's almost like diagnostics. It's almost like getting blood work done on a tax return, where it'll highlight like all the critical issues. And then it's a great starting point for the thinking work and saying, oh, gee, look, they're in the 10% tax bracket. Maybe we should do IRA distributions this year, a Roth conversion to fill the tax bracket. And then also you're allowed to do Roth conversion work and sort of model out things like that.
Right. Of course, one of the treasures of good technology for advisors is that it often produces a meaty deliverable that can set the stage for meaningful conversations with clients.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I don't understand when I talk to people and they're still using Excel to do a Social Security analysis. I mean, we did that tax workshop 2 weeks ago with Jeff Levine, and we had somebody, because we did like the technology part of it, and we had somebody say that they use Excel to do Social Security analysis, and literally I laughed. I'm like, that's absolutely impossible to do. And so aside from the fact that not using the right software or using Excel or back of the envelope calculations, aside from the fact that they are probably inaccurate, the deliverables that you get from this software, it's beautiful, and it helps you to justify your fee and show the client that you're working, and easily comprehensible by the client. And that includes those Holistiplan reports, which we send directly to the clients with the cover email.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned you used the phrase justifying your fee, because the smart technology empowers the advisor to fight back against fee pressure by being able to generate meaningful snapshots and insights into your clients' lives that become the basis of planning and meaningful discussion. So
wait, let me give you an example, just because to me, this is fascinating, right? Is you say, oh, this technology is going to put us out of business, right? We're busier than ever leveraging the technology to provide additional value. So I'll just give you a quick example, because this was literally from yesterday. So you get a dashboard in Holistiplan, and the dashboard will show you AGI, tax rates, things like that. So one of the angles where you're looking at is all of our clients that are in the 10 to 12% tax bracket, and then going into their investment portfolio and pulling out either if they have traditional IRAs, whether we should be doing more distributions, Roth conversions, or if they have unrealized capital gains, should we be then selling some of those stock at a gain, even if we buy it back the next day, to basically fill up that 10 to 12% tax bracket. So we're basically getting a holistic plan report, seeing all those people, and now we're going to go to them and say, look, you got a 10 to 12% tax bracket, use it or lose it. Here's some of the things that we're recommending doing. I mean, we never could have done that en masse, 3 years ago.
Right.
It's genius.
Yeah. Good. So, but you started then to go on to some two others.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned FP Alpha, which I think partly starts to address beyond taxes, estate planning, I think.
Yeah. So I would tell you, like, new entrants to watch, right? Because they're just on the scene. And what you see when this niche software shows up is it shows up and then there's like all this dynamism, right, during the first couple of years. And so FP Alpha is a newer entrant. They do have a tax calculator. They will give you a tax report. Parts of that tax report are actually better than Holistic Plan, parts not as much. So part of it is you figuring out what makes sense for your practice. But then it will look at insurance, if you're getting divorced, and estate planning, and issue reports in those areas. And so FP Alpha is pretty cool, and we're sort of working on integrating that into our practice. And then the other one that's pretty cool is Vanilla. And Vanilla just focuses on estate planning. And my broker dealer is literally approving Vanilla any day now, which is so exciting for us. We're all ready to go. We ran some sample reports. I always use myself as a guinea pig. And so we ran a sample report on the Taylor family, and it did sort of the estate planning, the waterfall, who the beneficiaries were, the trustees, the successor trustees, in these beautiful reports. And again, opens up a great conversation with your clients. And so those are two new ones, which I would say, again, like, they're not primary software. Those are more like those secondary or tertiary types of software.
Right. Yeah. So what about in other, so this is you've mentioned the three you've mentioned, sort of kind of hardcore estate planning stuff, which is fantastic. But we are talking about client service, and it's more than just financial planning. What other softwares are you using that either help you deliver additional service to your clients or are assisting you in communicating with your clients, like on social media, for instance?
Yeah. So on the social media, we use Hootsuite Pro. And Hootsuite Pro is about $400 a year. And I have some notes written down, so if you see me looking down, and it helps to schedule your social media posts. So one of the things they talk about is that you should be posting several times a week on all the different social media, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And so you can then schedule these posts. So we'll schedule them when we're out, on holidays, whatever, on the different social media. And basically what happens then is we only go once a week for the most part to schedule for the entire week, unless there's some spontaneous thing that comes up and then, okay, let's post for this today. And so we use Hootsuite. Obviously, we use Constant Contact to be reaching out.
By the way, just on going back to the Hootsuite thing, just to issue an alert to everyone, because we have seen this from time to time. And this is where the danger of technology and preloading social media posts. And the vulnerability you have there is to set it and forget it. And then, you have a post that is coming out on the day, unfortunately, when, something in the news, like some terrible shooting or some other shocking thing happens, and where, the whole nation is in shock and mourning, and a social media post that was set 5 days ago pops up and is just sort of out of, slightly distasteful or potentially distasteful, given, what has just transpired in the news. So it's always good to keep in mind when something terrible happens in the news to think, all right, what do we have in social media post? Is it going to still seem light and cheery? And is that right and appropriate when the whole nation is aghast at, some terrible thing, whatever it may be? Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. Thank you for that. So yeah, so we have Hootsuite Pro. We use Constant Contact to reach out to our distribution list, to advertise our webinars and things like that.
Right.
And then even though I have people in-house who help to create messaging materials, is what we call it, communication materials, we still like to subscribe to some services that can give us some content that we can then leverage or use in addition. And so my broker dealer has Marketing Central. It's a couple $100s a year. It's Cetera. Most broker dealers have some type of library that they've created where they're updating with new content. And so I'd urge you to leverage that for a couple $100s a year and see if you could use that. Also, we use Marketing Pro, which is another library, and that's about $300 a year. And again, they create a lot of content, and so we'll leverage that. And then,
by the way, I just want to be sure that you're mentioning one that's a service that you have certainly been on for quite a long time that operates in this space. So
Horse's Mouth, of course. Yeah, I mean, Horse's Mouth, I mean, I'm always beating the drum for Horse's Mouth. I think that there is so much content that comes out of Horse's Mouth that people don't realize or don't leverage. And it's a shame because I go into every meeting with Horse's Mouth content and checklists and sheets. We attach them to our agendas. And so I think the danger with Horse's Mouth is that there's so much content that people don't know sometimes where to find it, or they're just limited by their creativity. So absolutely, Horse's Mouth is phenomenal. And I would tell you, probably Horse's Mouth is the #1 place that we use to leverage the content. And then GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar.
Defending the brand there for a second.
No, but it's the God's honest truth. I mean, I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. And then GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar is what we use. We do not use Zoom. My husband's always been concerned about the security connected with Zoom. And so we have always used GoToMeeting, and we've just stayed with them, and then GoToWebinar. So that's the sort of the tech stack that we use in communicating with the clients.
Right. Good.
Okay, we have a few folks writing in here.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. So we have Bruce saying we always use Horse's Mouth for marketing. So you see it from somebody other than me.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Bruce. Your check is in the mail. And so we got Cliff. How do you integrate estate planning reports with coordinating, working with clients, estate planning attorney? Do you have client take report to attorney for execution? Yeah. So Cliff,
I'm sorry. Wait, what was that last part about execution?
I'm sorry. Do you have the client take the reports to the attorney for execution?
Okay.
And my apologies, Cliff, because maybe I didn't explain Vanilla so great, is you already have the documents and then you upload them to Vanilla, and Vanilla basically summarizes the documents, shows you like a pretty waterfall. By the way, something that none of these attorneys do. I think these estate planning attorneys, talk about Neanderthal stuck in the Stone Ages. I mean, they have access to this software. They could give you nice reports that you see the waterfall, oh, the $1 million trust, and then that goes to this one, then that gets split between the 3 of them. They don't do anything like that. Right? They just give you 20 pages or 30 pages of wills that nobody can understand but them. There's no table of contents. There's no anything. As an aside, I tell my clients, get a planning letter from your attorney, right? Get an executive memo summarizing your documents, which, by the way, if you don't ask for it, a lot of times you don't even get that. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, what Vanilla does, though, is gives you that executive level summary, gives you those pretty sort of flow charts and everything. And I will tell you, even for my own estate plan, using myself as a guinea pig, I forgot who our co-trustees were. I forgot who the successors were, and the successors to the successors. And then when you see it in a flow chart, you're like, wait a second, my husband's mother is a successor trustee, and she's like on her last legs right now in a nursing home. Like, what sense is that? And so it's very helpful then to sit with the client and pull that together. And essentially you are being that quarterback, right? You're being that CFO. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, Cliff. It's not so much that they go back with the documents, it's they're coming to you with the documents. But having said that, if you uncover things as part of this sort of review, then by all means, they need to go back to the attorney and say, hey, I was looking at this with my financial advisor, and I forgot that my mother-in-law, who's on her last legs, is our successor trustee. We need to update that. So that's how that would work. And then we have, Jackie saying, love Horse's Mouth. So I guess everybody wants to get that check that we're sending out. So, so that's just some of that feedback there.
All right, good. So what you do have a, your practice management workshop coming up July 19th to the 22nd. It's a virtual event, 3 hours a day, noon to 3 on the East Coast, 9 to noon on the West Coast. And can you just talk a little bit about how this issue of technology is addressed in the context of the workshop? What will people be learning? What sort of things, what kind of ground will you cover? What what kind of takeaway might people leave with?
Yeah, it's, it's again amazing and slightly ironic that I'm up here beating the drum for technology, because anyone that knows me knows it. I would seem like the most unlikely person in the world, but the technology allows us to protect our practice, protect our fees, service our clients in the sort of the individual, give them the individual attention that they need, right? Technology allows you to do that, right? And helps you to grow that practice. And so now then discussing technology has become a critical part of these workshops. So for the tax workshop, we spend almost a quarter of the time on the technology, creating the deliverables, how to communicate, all that. And in the practice management workshop, it's almost a quarter of the time as well that we talk about the social media, how to use technology for that, constant contact, e-money, how to deliver financial plans, what they should look like, all of that. Technology is the silent partner, right? Technology is behind all that. We actually go into Holistic Plan, we go into FP Alpha Vanilla, because all of this, yes, it's a practice management workshop, but what's that about? Is how to deliver service to your clients efficiently, effectively. And again, technology is driving all of that. So I would tell you, yeah, we get into that probably about a quarter of the time we focus on that.
Good, good. And how do you deal with the fact that this technology, basically, both the vanilla, FP Alpha, Holistic Plan, I'm not a technology person myself, but I believe I'm correct when I'm saying that there are artificial engines in those artificial intelligence engines in all those software programs that are doing things that couldn't easily be done by hand and couldn't be done at all on the computer in the past. And so we are seeing these, what amounts to little technology robots doing serious work for us at the touch of a button. And my question is that it is the nature of technology to continue to evolve. And, for instance, when Facebook came along, I could immediately see that I could turn Facebook into a news reader by following any variety of news organizations and other organizations who understood the idea of marketing content. And so I wasn't using Facebook necessarily to communicate with my friends. I was using it as a simple place to gather together all the information I wanted to be monitoring on a daily basis. And after a couple of years, along came this thing called Twitter. But I knew I was already throwing enough energy into Facebook that, I really resisted Twitter for a very, very long time and still just look on it just a little bit because I was worried about yet another thing. Sure. Yet for advisors, they're always, it seems now we've kicked off in the last 5 years, this amazing, technology revolution in terms of services that a technology empowered advisor can deliver to his or her clients. But there still is this, how do you handle, I know you've got Rob on your team. What is he doing monitoring new stuff? How are you keeping track of new stuff? And how do you, is there like it's too much, or I can't take any more of it, or I don't know, just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Absolutely not. It's too much, can't take any more of it. This is not like a Twitter feed where it's a total time suck and then you look up 2 hours later and you've been reading about Princess Kate. This is critical to the growth of your practice. And so how we have it is we have sort of different like specialists or people in certain roles. So when I read about certain types of technology offerings, I then assign it to the person who's in that space. So for example, financial planning, software development, they go to Jen on our team because she's our financial planning assistant. And she's the one that does the initial look through, the demo, reports back. We have somebody that handles paperwork and sort of investment related stuff. So like Riskalyze, and Riskalyze is, by the way, amazing. So we haven't mentioned Riskalyze. Riskalyze was mentioned here by somebody in the chat. I'm looking, it's earlier. We love Riskalyze, and there is so much to Riskalyze that people don't realize. And so and Riskalyze has its updates, right? Like they'll send me an email saying, hey, we've got this great update, blah, blah, blah. The first thing I do is forward it to the person in charge of paperwork and investments. And he's the one that does that initial go through and then reports back to me. So that's how we would handle it in-house.
Yeah, good. All right. Do we have any other questions or comments at this point?
We had a question about Asset Map. And so, yeah, I mean, we've looked at Asset Map. And we are continuing to look at it, but right now our sense of Asset Map is it's sort of like a rudimentary version of financial planning software. It's almost, to us, it's a little bit redundant of eMoney, and we're already using eMoney and going really deep. So that's where you don't see us really using Asset Map. Now, Asset Map can be helpful. We've seen it like maybe with a prospect, again, laying out that nice visual. So I do like the visuals on Asset Map, but we are using the visuals from some of the other software we have. So I guess the bottom line is we didn't see it as incredibly additive because we already have these 9 or 10 other softwares that are basically replicating what Asset Map is doing.
Right. By the way, though, I also wanted to mention, just to swing back to horse's mouth, because our Savvy Social Security calculator suite did win award and high recognition, I think, with the recent annual survey that comes out.
Bob Veery's.
That's put up by Veery's and
Bob Veery's. Yeah, no, I mean, we're not, I mean, this is not an exhaustive list. So,
I just want to remind people too, though, because I think it, we literally started with, we were the first people that had any sort of tool for anybody for Social Security. And it was an Excel spreadsheet back in 2008. And we've built this amazing calculator that now I think is being scored highly in these industry surveys. So the Savvy Social Security suite is a great tool for people to be using for that all important Social Security analysis.
Yeah. So, all right. So then let's not, forget as we're sort of getting to the, right, is Social Security, which Sean mentions, Riskalyze, which we mentioned. Then we have Bruce writing in about Income Solver, and we didn't mention Income Solver yet. So that's for your advanced distribution planning. So we use Holistiplan for like this year. If we're going to do a Roth conversion for $50,000, maxing out the tax bracket, whatever. But for somebody who comes to us with a $4 million traditional IRA, they need a plan for 3, 4, 5, 10 years out. That we use Income Solver for. You can't really use Holistiplan for that. And so Income Solver. So thank you, Bruce, for adding that. Absolutely, Income Solver. And then the other one we should mention, and then I'll look at this and see if this covers my 10 that's in our stack, 9 or 10, is we use Asana. And I haven't mentioned that, but Asana is project management software, and you can share it within the office, and it gives you certain checklists. So, and it's project management. And so we are also using Asana. And so if we add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's obviously a couple others that we haven't yet mentioned because Income Solver, that's 8. Yeah. So that pretty much covers it. There might be one other, that pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, good. And is there anything, I know you also value and place a big emphasis on the soft side of your client connection, communication, recognition. I know you hit your clients with a few things during the course of the year. I'm not sure, is there any software in that space that's worth mentioning or identifying? Or is that just like, your client service person knows it's somebody's birthday or anniversary and you're going to ship off something?
Yeah. So for that, their birthdays, we get a report every month of the client birthdays for the month. And then we schedule sending out cakes and cards for the month. So I don't have specialized software for that.
Software for that, right?
Yeah. That's in Salesforce. And then we get a report, literally birthdays for the next 30 days is the filter.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. How are we doing on the questions?
I think we got to them all.
Yeah, we've covered. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if anybody has any other final comments out there, feel free to enter them now because our time is ticking down. There's nothing there. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. Debbie, thanks so much to you. Always enlightening and exciting. Looking forward to the workshop, the New Normal Practice Management Workshop. July 19th to the 22nd. Get mainline 3 hours of Debbie Taylor every day. By Friday, you'll be ready for a drink.
Thanks, John. It will change your life. It will change your practice.
People love it, and I totally agree. People are just like, you know, it's a Chinese menu of options and things that you can tactically integrate into your business. You don't need to do it all. No one's expecting everybody to leave the workshop and have a practice that's just like Debbie's. But that would be a good goal. But there's just so many things, and you'll know what you'll be able to valuably use in your practice. And also, the other aspect of it is the ROI, right? We didn't really talk about that, but most of these softwares, none of them are breaking the bank or anything like that. But the value that they're delivering back to you in terms of the value you're then passing on to your clients, pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's honestly fascinating to me is how cheap all this software is, and then that people still resist it. The only software that's really that expensive, I mean, aside from eMoney, right? So those core softwares, is Vanilla. Vanilla is a couple $1,000s a year for that more premium package, but it also includes a consultation with a real live attorney that can answer the questions that your client might have on their specific case. Okay. And so, yeah, right. And so for you, if you've got some of those high net worth clients, then that $3,000 a year could be very well worth it. So for us, it's going to make sense for us. But other than that, you see this software, it's like $50 a month, $70 a month. Riskalyze is a little bit pricier too. But at the end of the day, the efficiencies, the level of service, the analytics you get, it's just a no brainer. So that's a great point. That's a great point.
And you consider one's own hourly rate and how much time it's saving. And helping promote profitability, right, at the client, client service level. It's definitely promoting profitability.
And that's where you say, if you look at your hourly rate, that's where Holistiplan, no brainer, FP Alpha, no brainer, Vanilla, no brainer, because I used to go through those estate planning documents on my own. I mean, it pays for itself after you use it for one or two clients. And so that's how you got to look at it. Yes. Right. Yeah.
Sean, we got a question.
There's a question here from Cliff. Yeah. Will the workshop offer a replay for attendees? Absolutely. And you know what's great about having these workshops virtual with the replays is that some of the things we talk about make sense for your team, because you might have somebody on your team who's an assistant who does the marketing, does the social media posts. And so that day or those chapters, you're like, hey, Susie, this area is for you. Or the technology stuff, that junior guy on your team, you're like, hey, the third day she talks about technology, I need you to listen to these 2 hours. And so that's the one benefit about being virtual.
Yeah. It says the replay is available for 60 days. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much. Debbie, thank you. Looking forward to that workshop in a couple of weeks. And everybody have a great day. Stay cool.